Oh my goodness. Hey, hi, it's Mike. Did you know that Abe and Bridget and me are trying to make a movie right now? Yes, right dang now. It's called Papa Bear and tells the poignant and hilarious true story of the time my dad came out as a gay furry when I was 17. If you care about that at all, please head to seedandspark.com/fund/papa-bear to find out much more about the project, how you can be a part, and earn really cool rewards for helping us out. See you there. Here's your pod. Thanks so much. Yeah, baby, back after a break. First time interacting with you directly since the wedding, and you just bought a new car.
And we're in a
what
hurry.
What should we shit about?
I don't know. I mean, I clearly had the bigger life event,
Right, of course. Yeah.
No, all I can say is that I feel terrible, and I don't want to give the details of buying a car because I'm scared that someone's gonna message and go, "Oh, you got fucked." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm just like quietly. It's technically on paper the first car I ever bought.
Yeah. Well, then it is like a marriage. Does it feel weird knowing that you'll only be fucked by that car for the rest of your life?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. I feel sad about my old car because I had that for a very long time.
Yeah. Always interesting the ways a car dies. We had a family van that my brother threw up in and the stink would not leave, so we got rid of it. And then my dad had a red SUV that broke down one day on the side of the road and we just walked away.
Oh.
And I'm sure that's not what you're supposed to do.
No, probably not.
Yeah, as a child, it seemed like, I guess that's what you do. But like he didn't call a tow truck or nothing. We just left it there.
Right.
And then, yeah. So like, how'd your car die? The one that you're mourning?
It was just really fucking old.
Okay.
It was a 2005
Euthanasia.
Toyota Matrix. I had it for so long and the muffler was just hanging by a thread. And I knew that any second I'm going to have to pay a lot of money for it. And I was at that point in life where I was like, I need to get a new car because I like, we're literally doing that Big Bear drive. And I was like, this car probably can't make it. I need a reliable, regular car. So I just made the decision. What I feel bad about, I got a note on my car that was someone who was like, I'm a single mother. Can I buy your car? And in my mind, I was a hero for giving that single mother my car. Didn't end up happening because I don't have enough money. And so I had to trade in my shitty car, which will probably get stripped for parts. It had more love to give, not much more love to give though. So
yeah.
It's just.
Did it have a name or persona or anything?
Nah, it's a car.
Good, great. Just a car. It's just a car.
But
that's okay.
It's fine. It's how's being married? Great wedding.
Really,
Fantastic
really
wedding.
Good. The wedding was beyond perfect. I've told this spiel a few times now. Like
I'm sure.
I don't know that it's not content, so I probably won't explicate this anywhere else. But I couldn't believe. Like it actually felt like a miracle. Like it profoundly made me. And it was funny because I didn't think anything would change. I thought, other than it being a fun party that I would enjoy, but I was used to the trope of it would be stressful. Also, we've been together 11 years, so I thought, well, it won't feel like anything changed. Also, I was married once and I didn't feel much while it was happening beyond it being like now I have the stress of public speaking. Now we're married. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because it wasn't a good marriage, but like I didn't realize that difference would feel so tangible. All my mental health issues, like inability to be present for looping thoughts and stuff, like were gone all day. They just left me alone. I was perfectly present and like just the universe like powerfully flowing through me the whole day. It was fucking incredible. I can't imagine. It was like going to a movie and being like, that blew my expectations out of the water. I just did not think my wedding would be that dope. It was so good.
Yeah.
I thought it would be good and it still blew me away. Of course, I'm biased as the person going through it, but it was amazing.
Well, I'll lay it out because I used to film weddings. I think I told you that. So I've been to maybe 200 weddings.
Wow.
And so as a like wedding connoisseur, you were in the top tier. You really were. It was the right size. It
nice.
wasn't like I've gone to everything, like the terrifying mega church fucking weddings.
Oh wow!
I've gone to the little folksy ones. you had the right flavor of both, where it felt like it felt like a Hobbit wedding, in the sense that it's like this small, woodsy, beautifully lit, great food, great dessert. You nailed it. I was also on mushrooms, so I'm kind of a little unbiased, or biased.
Yeah.
But I wasn't on that much mushrooms, just for the record. Cried like a baby, not a dry eye in the house.
Hannah and I cried together. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys nailed it. In terms of just the cold, calculating look at the quality of a wedding, where it's like, obviously weddings don't matter if you love each other, and
right.
But from that perspective
and it had
of
that too. That's what was great of it. Yeah.
Yeah, from the perspective of like, if I was a wedding videographer, I'd be like, oh yeah, this would be a beautiful wedding video.
This is a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is better than most, and the crowd seems really fun and genuine.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the love feels real here in this group.
Yep.
I just want to mention like a couple things to flex, because they were so much effort. Jen, the gifts for the guests were these homemade finishing salts that Jen made. And I don't mean just by mixing salts together. They like slow dried 50 lemons and then zested all the shit.
Yeah, tell them that we are enjoying those salts.
So finishing salt. And then for my groomsmen, I made these custom made little bronze statuettes where each one's different and they like represent different aspects of their character. And I just want to say the wedding photographer came up to me and his wife, who's his photography partner, and was like, similar, like, we've photographed 500 weddings. This is the best groomsman gift we've ever seen. Like, you guys really love each other.
That's awesome.
I was like, we do indeed. Yeah, it was great. Can I talk about the thing I got financially fucked on recently?
Yeah.
That's what I want to talk about. Forget my
No, I kind of figured I wanted to hear about the wedding, but I also figured you had, like you said, talked about it a few times now.
Yeah.
Tell me about the darkness. Bring me into the...
It was great, but you were there. People should feel FOMO if they just are parasocially listening to this. It was awesome. Our crew is awesome. I forget what the last thing I wanted to say about it was, but whatever. You can also look on social media and see some shit about it. We did a sketch. Anyway, we talked on this podcast a long time ago about a drug that's similar to mushrooms that I prefer. DSL backwards. I don't know why I obfuscate, because there's no anyway. And that led to me meeting someone who provided some over the course of the years. And we recently tried to do that, and a little clerical error caused it to be hand delivered in front of a different house with a different address number than mine. A large box of that stuff valued at $800.
Oh my goodness.
And I walked over to the house where it was in my neighborhood, and I know what house it was delivered to, but it had already been taken in by the people. And it's a really sketchy house between like an abandoned skate park and an abandoned warehouse. And there's like 9 dudes sitting on the porch, hard eyeing me.
Like,
so that's gone. It's just
like,
gone.
No idea what
and
you're
I told the
about.
supplier guy, like, that did not work out. And they're like, I feel really bad. My life situation is such that I cannot I don't have the money to reimburse you or lose the I don't have that much left again. Right. And I'm like, okay, whatever, man. Shit happens. But that would have been like the largest score I've ever made in my life, and it didn't go well.
That sucks, man. That really sucks.
That would have done me for life. I would have been set for life. That's literally enough for like
100%. Oh man, that sucks. I hope you're able to get a similar deal in the future. But that made me feel like... Yeah,
he's like, maybe in a year or two, I'll save up a little bit and try to make it tough. Right. But yeah.
Yeah, this has been...
And if you're listening, person, it's totally fine. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean...
I know you feel bad.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it was necessarily their fault. It sounds like it's one of those fucking times where just fate just hits you right in the taint. Yeah, I've been also... I've just had... I mean, I had a similar month of like just money just falling through my fingers, and then I somehow was like,
wedding, forget
yeah,
about
and
it.
then
Yeah.
like I dealt with like plane shit and then there was some cat vet shit, so it was just one after another, and for some
Right.
reason I ended this month
I took some
by
of your
being
money.
like,
yeah.
I'll get a new car, and now I'm like, why would I
Sure.
do that to myself?
Yeah.
But the car is the least of that. The cat was the problem. The wedding wasn't that, obviously. Like,
Oh, great. Okay, good.
Oh, of course
No,
that's
I mean,
worth
that's
it.
part of it
No,
where you're like, it's funny
so-
that it's worth it, but you are requiring that everyone spend
Yeah.
money if they don't own
that's
suits and
actually
shit.
not the whole thing. What happened was we were actually going to be in San Francisco for a week before, and the cat, his eye just went blind, and
Yeah.
I had to cancel the first half of that wedding. And it turned out that what he had was he got over it, which is great. But off mic, I'll probably tell you that I'll be visiting your area in a few months, and maybe we can do something during then.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, definitely. Okay. Speaking of a while back getting kicked in the taint, I think it's time for the brand new episode of Star Trek: The Next Futurama.
Welcome to Star Trek: The Next Futurama, an epic team-up between Gamefully Unemployed and Small Beans. For access to the entire series, find us on Patreon. And now your hosts, Mike and Dave.
Episode 49, hosted by your own Michael Swaim, co-hosted by David Bell from the Small Beans and Gamefully Unemployed networks, respectively or disrespectfully, whichever thing jumbles out of your mouth, out of your shit mouth. And this is a podcast where we compare and contrast how the comedy writer team behind Futurama handles similar sci-fi concepts as the drama team behind Star Trek: The Next Generation, although it has some comedic episodes. And as host, I'm going to dive right in.
Yeah,
dude.
you are.
I think I gotta. As host, it's my privilege and honor to refresh your memory on the Futurama episode that we're covering, just so all the little fiddly bits are clear in your mind, because we're going to compare them to stuff later. And we're up to season 4, episode 5, Leela's Homeworld.
Woo!
Leela's Homeworld. This is the one where Leela is named Orphan of the Year, and they go to the orphanarium for some kind of, ceremony about that. She gives a little thank you speech about how she's always been really, really self-reliant, and that it's been tough being an orphan. And then we segue through, like, they're putting her photo on the wall, like plaque, like, hey, Orphan of the Year. And it segues to a flashback where we see that she was abandoned in a pile of baskets is a joke.
It's
that
a
I'll
great
reference
joke.
later.
Yeah.
Good joke. She was abandoned in a basket as a baby on the doorstep of the orphanarium. The orphanage guy comes out and sees that she has a note written in alienese in a language that he says no one on Earth can translate. We'll probably talk about that more later too, from a logic perspective. But she takes her in, and that's that. Like, so you go, oh, okay, she was abandoned by aliens, which in fact has been the series lore up to this point. People listening to the show know where it's going because they like Futurama. That's why they're listening. Anyway, just to refresh you, she misses her parents, even though she claims to be totally self-reliant. Fry finds her in a quiet moment crying and says, I really do miss my parents. And they go on a little romantic walk where they talk about stuff. And then the professor, that's right, that's why I took a beat, because it's unrelated initially. The professor invents a machine that makes glow-in-the-dark plastic noses. Don't worry about that. That doesn't go anywhere. The point is, the machine produces a great deal of toxic waste, and Bender offers to very cheaply get rid of it and starts dumping it in the sewers. So Bender is dumping, and then he expands the business. So Bender's dumping all kinds of toxic waste into the sewers, while Fry and Leela go on their walk and talk about the fact that she misses her folks. At that very moment, the mutants who live in the sewers rebel, are like, stop with the toxic waste. And they come up and capture our trio, Bender, Fry, Leela, and bring them down to the mutant city underneath New York to be executed. No, tortured, I guess, but, punished. They're going to dip them in their own toxic waste, which will turn them instantly into a mutant. They test it on a rat, and the rat turns into a pig fish bird. And what would that be called? I don't know. We'll figure it out later. They somehow escape. I forget. I think Leela does it. It doesn't really matter. No, it does matter because I'm reading it. No, I didn't write it down. Fuck it. They escape somehow. I think Leela does it. We are introduced to these figures in cloaks that are constantly helping them out in little ways or pleading with the lead mutant to not execute them and stuff like that. They run away from the mutants. The townspeople chase them. They hide in a random house and find a collage of photos of Leela and like a Leela collection of everything she's ever flushed down the toilet and a bunch of spy photos of her whole life from the vantage point of people who live in the sewer. So she believes that these creepy people in the cloaks are sewer stalkers, and she doesn't fully know why they're following her, but she must find out. So as they all try to escape, with the help from the cloaked figures we see the cloaked figures beg for leniency, that's right, and they get expelled instead of executed. But as they're leaving, Leela goes, I'm sorry, I got to find out what the deal is with those stalkers, and jumps and stays in the sewer.
She risks being a mutant for this, but...
Actually blindly, because she thinks she will become a mutant. And then the first clue that she's that she is a mutant instead of an alien is that it doesn't mutate her. And she's like, how's this possible? What's going on? Then we have a two-pronged attack. Bender just keeps doing toxic waste. That doesn't matter anymore. But Fry on the surface uses the professor's nose machine to translate the alien note because he's also trying to help figure out what's going on. He seems to figure out what's going on. And he goes, I have to rush to Leela. And we're like, oh, what's the solution going to be? At the same time, Leela catches up with the mutants in the cloaks and says, you've been stalking me my whole life. I've deduced what happened. My alien parents, you murdered them and mugged them. And then abandoned me because you realized, oh, we can't kill a baby, and you left me at the orphanarium, right? And they're like, yes, that's true. And she's like, I'm going to kill you. And they're like, you should go for it. And then Fry comes in and she says, these people killed my parents. And he says, close, they are your parents. And reveals through flashback a whole entire separate understanding, which is, of course, that she was born so unmutated, meaning only a Cyclops, that they wanted her to have the privileged life of a surface dweller because they loved her so much. So they abandoned her. Her mom is a master of exolinguistics and wrote an indecipherable alien note. Why would she make it indecipherable if they wanted it to be under? Anyway, I guess as evidence they were alien.
They did it so they would look at it and go, oh, it's an alien.
I know, but I have more questions for later. But anyway, that was the plan. Make it look like it's an alien so she'll be accepted. Aliens are more accepted than mutants. She can have a normal life. People will just believe she's a Cyclops alien. She can do that Al Bundy episode. It'll be great. And we will never, be in her life, but we'll follow her from afar. And we even see that they drop candy bars in front of her when she's a kid or whatever. Like they just give her stuff. Yeah. As she's been growing up. So they've been a part of her life as they could. And they say, we assumed you'd be ashamed of us. And she says, all I've ever wanted is to know you. This is the happiest day of my life. Is that the end? They hug and cry. It's sweet. That is the end. Yeah. It ends with the sweet montage.
Dumping crap on him. Yeah.
And they undercut the treacle in classic Simpsons fashion with Bender being like, final joke about toxic waste. Yep. Credits. Yeah.
Nice. Nicely done.
Now it's time to pass the energy to David.
That's me.
Is it a segment? No. That's the similarities themselves. You just tell us what's up.
I'm going to tell you all what episode we matched up with. Do we have weird energy? I have just bought a car energy, so I'm like...
I feel fine.
You know what I mean? Where it's like I've been on survival mode for 4 hours.
Sure.
All right.
Which you always expect 2.5 hours.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I'm frazzled. So if people are like, man, he sounds frazzled, that's why. No, but the episode we are pairing it up with quite nicely is season 7, episode 10, Inheritance. that is an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation, to be precise, that I will now explain. If the name didn't pop out to you, it's about Data's hot mom.
That's the one.
So the Enterprise is going to what is it, Altria 4?
Altea? I think it's
Altea 4. Basically, it's the plot of the movie The Core. The Core is cooling.
No, Atreya.
Atreya 4.
I looked it up.
The planet is cooling, like in the movie The Core. And like the movie The Core, they're going to inject... Well, they're not going to set off nukes. They're going to inject plasma into the core to restore it to its molten state. And this is where we meet Juliana, who is... or Juliana, I guess. Who is one of the scientists there with Pran, her husband. And she's there out of like a weird coincidence. She's there to help them with the core, and then takes Data aside. And he's like, "Hey, by the way, I'm your mom." And what she means by that is that she was married to Noonien Soon back when Data was created. She was wiped from his memory, and it's kind of sus because it's like, oh, I guess I have a mom. That's weird.
Which I don't require. I don't need to have had a mom.
And Data, I would say pretty understandably at first, is like, I'm going to look into this story because it's weird. And other people, Jordy, are like, there's no reason for her to claim that she's your mom out of the blue, which they're right. That's a weird scam. But it's also weird that she never looked him up. And she's just like, oh, now that I happen to have you here, I'm your mom.
And I say it casually, so it's like, okay, then why did you hide if it's no big deal?
A lot of people casually explaining things because Data's later like, oh yeah, Soon is dead. You didn't know that? Oh yeah, you had a granddaughter. Yeah. She's also dead. So what happened was apparently they wiped his memory on the planet. And right before the crystalline entity came, he was about to be reactivated and they were attacked. That's what she tells them. Tells Data. Data looks into it and finally accepts her as his mother, kind of being like, this checks out as much as it can. It's still weird. So they start bonding. Cute, mother-son stuff. He plays his violin for her in his quarters. I'm sure he reads her some fucking poetry. Like exhausting, like it's perfect for Data. Exhausting shit that only she could care about.
It's like look, see what I'm doing? Am I human yet? Does this look human? Do you think I'm human? Look what I'm doing.
Right. And so he also tells her about Lol. Again, very casually. She asks if he would create another child. She seems like she's hiding something, and what she admits is that after the deal with Lord, Data's evil twin, when they left, when the crystalline entity attacked, I forgot to mention this. She said, "Oh, there was only room for 2 on the escape pod." That was a lie. She was afraid of taking Data. She was scared he's going to become like Lore. Data, in his Data way, is like, "Would you have done that if I was a human?" And she's like, "No." Like he calls her out on the bullshit where she's like, "We loved you like a human," and he's like, "Yeah, but you also left me on the planet to die, and I'm pretty sure you wouldn't do that for a human." And so there's some good conflict there. He also goes to Beverly Crusher after doing a recital with her where they both play. She plays what does she play? It's not a violin. Viola. So they do a recital together for a bunch of freaks who watch that. And Data seems like oddly suspicious of her after she does that. So he goes to Crusher and he wants to see her medical records. And she's like, "That's kind of unusual, but sure. Why?" And he's like, "I suspect she's not who she says she is." And he leaves it at that because they have to go down to the planet because there is an emergency. They have to do emergency repairs on the plasma dildo that does the thing. Doesn't really matter. They go to the core of this planet, or near, deep into the planet. And they Data and Juliana are doing the gizmo. They're fixing it. Fucking Pran got injured, so he's not there. there's also a part where Pran goes to Data like, you should be good to her. And I wanted Data to be like, you're not my father. But he didn't do that. And so as they're doing this, the core is destabilizing. So it's your classic like cave set, TNG cave set, everything's falling. They fix the device. They go back to they have to do the transporter boosters, those 3 metal dicks. Everything's a dildo.
Yeah.
And
because they're underground.
Yeah,
beam amplifiers.
But they have to jump down this huge cliff. And in a wonderful moment, Juliana is like, listen, I'm like 60. This is
please don't make me do
huge
this.
jump. I don't think I can make it. And Jada just goes, you can make it, and shoves her.
And and she lands so hard that her arm falls off.
Yes.
That's pretty hard. That's a
spoiler,
fall.
she's a robot, but had she not been one,
but still,
Data would have murdered her. She bashes her head in and her arm flies off. Data is incorrect. He's like, you'll make it. Under what condition?
My calculations were slightly off.
Yeah, it's a hell of a fucking thing for Data to do that I can't get over. But they learn, oh my God, she's a robot. She has been shut down for some reason, so he beams her aboard the ship. They say this at the end, but the plasma thing's taken care of. The planet's fine. No need to think about that. It worked.
Blah, blah, blah.
It's the B plot, which is wild because they're jump starting a planet, but that's the B plot.
Right.
The plot of the core with Aaron Eckhart is the B plot. So she's clearly a more advanced robot. She can age, which is fucking amazing. Data, they're saying there's nothing
she can sweat.
wrong with her. She's just unconscious. She's just she can sweat. She's just shut off. They're tooling around in her brain, and Data finds a little chip that he's like, oh, this is a message. It's a holographic chip message thing. So he goes to the holodeck, sticks it in. Sure enough, there's Dr. Soon.
It's Wesley Crusher's father saying bland pleasantries.
That would be amazing. I do want to talk about this message a little more, but basically he's like, oh, it's Data. How are you, boy? I have a subset of answers based for just you. And Data's like, what the fuck's going on? And he's like, okay, so the real Juliana did exist. She super died when the crystalline entity attacked. I'm a maniac, so I'm just made a robot one. And apparently I couldn't make that relationship work.
Well, like I was already working on the new model of Android that's even better, so I was like, may as well make it my wife and gaslight it into thinking it's my wife and never let it know that it's a robot.
But then again, separate. It's just very funny to create.
And she leaves him.
To create a love robot, essentially, that's like, nah.
And it breaks up with you.
That's real loser shit. So that's what she is. Yeah, he's basically, Soon's fuck robot that has all the same memories and
that quit
and can age and doesn't know that she's a robot. So we're left with this heady fucking decision where Data's like, do I tell her? And he holds a meeting.
Which I wondered, does that imply that the one way in which she's not advanced is that she's not smart enough to deduce that she's a robot? Because Data figured it out from just a few clues that she also would have noticed by now.
You're
in her
right.
Life, I feel
it's like she has like a denial program because it also
maybe there's just a program blocking that knowledge.
Yeah, because they say they also hand wave why her vitals were organic, where they're like, the chip like projects these organic vitals, and it's like, sure. I want to talk about how incredible.
But
this
she's never been injured before.
Yes.
Because if you peel her skin off, done deal.
Yeah.
Like that's
either
all it
that
takes.
Because she's been designed to shut down when injured. So what if this is like the 6th time someone has done this? We don't know. It would be a hell of a thing.
Yeah.
So basically the decision, which he calls a meeting, a work meeting, to be like, should I tell my mom she's a robot? And there's some people are saying like, well, if she finds out later, she's going to be kind of like, what the fuck, Data? But also someone points out, if you tell her, you're denying her the thing that you want, which is to be human. And she's going to grow old and she's been programmed to die. And honestly, if I was told I was a robot that also has to die, I'd be like, so this sucks. Like, oh, you're a robot. You have none of the benefits, but you're a robot.
And knowing that there's an android out there living completely a human life,
Right.
sort of gives you hope. Like it's aspirational that she exists.
Yes.
Why would you destroy
Right,
that?
but I would also, I would, if I was, it probably she'd lose her mind. She'd spend her life trying to like become immortal because she knew
She'd spend her final years in total dissociative like chaos. Yeah.
So Data just fixes her up, repairs her, turns her back on, and everybody just from then on, including her husband, who's probably going through a lot of emotions, is just like, I guess I'm fucking a robot, but I can't tell her. So everybody just agrees to lie to this woman, to Data's hot mom, and then he says, "You broke your arm. Everything's fine. Bye." And then we never see her again. Because apparently Data's just like, Data's just like, well, not actually my real mom, so flush.
Yeah.
We're done here.
I thought it was weird how right before he was like, if you weren't really my mom, would you find me attractive? And she's like, what? And he's like, never mind. Goodbye, mother.
Bye, hot mom.
Yeah. She does do several things that I found I was like, phrasing, I guess, would be the thing where I'm like, I wasn't thinking about incest when I started this, and now you're making me go like, is she hitting on him? Did you notice that there were one or two?
She's doing the mom thing. She has that weird.
Well,
Troy,
she just puts her hand on his hand. That's fine. Yeah. What were you
Troy
say? Sorry.
Scene where she's just like, yeah, you fuck your therapist, and he's like.
That's the thing is she seems pleased to learn that he can fuck. And she's like, well, it's because that was a hard thing to program. We didn't know if it would work. And I'm just like, that's just a weird thing to be like, I'm so proud you can fuck, because son. You fuck real good? Man, I did a good job.
Right, because it's probably based off of like their preferences. Like it's weird. Yeah. It's weird to think about that.
And then later there's the line, Data, do you have any plans right now? I think we should spend a little time together. I'd love to see your quarters.
It's entirely possible that they didn't think of Data like a child when they first created him. Like they were going to throw him into the mix, in the bedroom or something. It's entirely possible. And then after
because he looks like Soong.
Yeah.
I could see them having the conversation where like, it's not that weird. It's like me fucking you, I'm your husband. It just looks like me. I could totally see him trying to talk 100%. Her into that shit. All right. Well, I think this one will be pretty quick because we did a good job obfuscating while we described them, but the similarities are pretty there on the surface. So let's lay them out real quick in a segment we call Good News Number 1.
Good News Number 1.
And I'll take the biggie. No, I'll go in the order because I looking at my notes, I realize I consciously ordered them. So I'm just going to go in order and you take, and if you say one, then I'll skip that one. Our crew go to a shitty place, Earthquake Planet versus Ruined Sewers, and make it worse, by which I mean they shoot a space laser at it and temporarily it gets worse and they're like, oh no, are we going to blow up this planet? Similarly, they're like the sewers and Bender's like, I'm going to destroy it even worse. And that's basically the B plot around the main thing.
I mean, specifically, they're in both they're dumping stuff underground, right? They're doing the plasma and they're doing the garbage.
Oh yeah, it's underground. Yeah, they're shooting into
both
the
is
underneath
deep underground.
the crust.
Yeah.
Right.
So both are about secret parents. That they the characters are first suspicious of and in denial of. Leela assumes her parents were killed by who are actually her parents, the mutants. She's in clear denial, and Data, of course, is in denial that this is his mother.
Suspicious.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The parents also abandoned you, even though they do love you, which is a very specific and, of course, the perfect way to create poignancy. I just watched Blade Runner 2049, and I'm glad you mentioned Core because it's obviously Core, but it's also kind of Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah, you're right.
She's the new model of android, but she doesn't know it. She's so sophisticated that you can't tell her apart, and she was abandoned, spoilers, by Deckard. Even though he loves his child, he had a good reason to abandon her. Because, how do you twist the knife into a parent? Of course, you have to abandon your child, but but not for evil reasons. That's how we can feel for you, right?
And both they're shamed. They're very shamed about it.
They're shamed, but they did abandon their child. Yeah.
A character finds out they are not who they thought they were biologically, like the foundation of who they are, by making a leap to survive, or a leap of faith.
Oh wow! Physically,
a physical leap, and both
Leela jumps into the lake,
and Juliana,
and he jumps from the cliff. Wow!
And they both, upon landing, expecting a really bad result, get a better result because of who they are. Leela is a mutant,
but are confused and are like, "Why did that happen that way?" They both do that. Yeah. Wow.
It's different because it's Juliana who is the Leela in that comparison.
Is knocked
but
out.
You could argue that Data also makes that leap.
And we also mix and match here because characters can all steal or own various plot beats, and I'm more interested in comparing the maneuvers that they decided
and
to
it's
do.
Still,
than like, it doesn't have to be Leela's consistently Troy throughout.
It's also
an
still directly related to the parent, like the main plot. You know, It's not like Geordi did it or something.
But the chess pieces are in a slightly different order. That's true. Like you said, on the theme of special, Leela's the mutant who's least mutated ever. Data is the one android that didn't, or it's the versus lore, the one that didn't turn out evil. And she talks about how special that was. And their inherent specialness led to their being abandoned directly. Because Leela's so unmutated, her parents give her up because Data is like so rare in the galaxy, a sentient android. She's scared of him.
Both do the eye-rolly parents, am I right? Making parents in this both weird creeps for their kids, collecting Leela's stuff like a stalker. Data's mom talking about him being naked and wanting him to bone the counselor. Like weird parent shit they explore in both.
Yeah.
I have one more.
The key to their true identity is left on a note that was left with them when they were born or created, meaning her note is in her brain, but it's still just a note, and Leela has one stapled to her
And
basket.
They're both a secret message, right?
Yeah, right. They're both obfuscated. You're not supposed to immediately be able to access. Yeah. The underlying message of both, ultimately from the misfits point of view, Leela or Data, is that at base, everyone just wants to be human. Normality is the best. It sucks to be a robot. It sucks to be a mutant. I wish I could be human like everyone is. It's sort of a conformity theme as aspirational, which I do think is funny because the Federation is kind of about assimilating everything.
Oh, yeah,
right?
for sure. That's all I had. It's very strong, very strong.
Okay. The other one I got is a piece of astounding technology is revealed, the most advanced we've seen in each series so far. Of course, I mean the humanoid droid versus the glow-in-the-dark nose machine. Super cutting-edge sci-fi. And that brings us to our next segment, where we just get to say all the things that we've been referencing when we go, ooh, I want to say that later. So let's go through our notes and eventually talk jokes in BMSPD.
Fight my shiny Prime Directive.
Nice abbrev.
Thanks, dude. Nice acronym. How do you shorten acronym?
Nice
How do you abbrev acro? Nice act, dude. Yeah.
Nice
go ahead.
A. Sorry. Talking about the Futurama, I do want to point out how incredibly hard of a story beat it is to sell, where Leela goes, I have to know who those cloaked people are. I'm going to jump into the mutant sludge and become a mutant and just...
And they did sell it, meaning I didn't think about it as weird until you
Neither did I
it.
until watching it this time. I was like, wait, that is a big ask. Like she is fundamentally changing her body by jumping in just to find something out that honestly she can find out later. Like she could like, she could jump onto the balloon. I don't know. It's a lot.
She could regroup and come back tomorrow. Yeah, totally.
I think it's constantly weird, and I know why they're doing it. That like mutants are bad, but aliens are fine in this on Earth. That's just very funny to me. Because like aliens,
but it's the ham-fisted metaphor of like there's still oppression, and it's the people below us. Like if you're watching Foundation, they do that.
I know why they did it.
Coruscant.
I know why.
Like if you live at the bottom, you're poor. Like Midgard,
we
do this all the time. Yeah. I thought it was interesting, but very minor, that they show a bunch of the orphans of the year. I don't know if this means anything, but Leela's the only woman orphan of the year.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if that means anything, or I'm just trying to score points. But I also wanted to ask of the Futurama of the parents, why are they wearing cloaks that obscure their faces? Considering that when Leela arrives in the sewers, they act surprised that this is happening, which they would be. They didn't know Leela was coming to the
That
sewers
makes
today,
very little
but they're
sense.
already they're judiciously hiding their
It's
faces.
interesting. I think so. I feel like they were like, there was some conversation because we know who they are. They show them to us early. So we know.
And if you're close reading at all, they've given like 6 hints. They want you to figure it out before she does.
But they show us it's them by visually showing us them immediately.
Yeah.
So I think in their minds they're like, well, because when Leela sees them, she goes, "Oh, that is my parents." So I think in their minds they're like, the moment she sees them, she'll know, so she can't see them, which is funny because like you could make them look a little different, but rule of cartoon means they have to look like her. It's just very funny.
Right. They are mutants in such a way where you can see that her character model is a hybrid of their character models. That exact, like, because you want it to be clear. I will say, as far as parent side characters go, like your Lawaksana, Troy's and whatnot, I really like, what's her name?
It's hard. I don't.
Leela's mom.
It's like
I forget
they don't
the
write
name
it.
of, and I apologize.
It's like they don't say it as much or something.
And Morris. I like Morris and what's her name? I'm looking it
Thank
up.
you.
But you say a point while I do that.
Well, I was gonna go off of Futurama and go to Star Trek, and I just wanted to shout out
Taranga. Oh no, that's their last because they're both like sorry, because they're like Kira Nerys. They reverse it. Taranga Leela's also blah blah blah. Anyway, it's Munda, which I do remember now, but they hardly ever say it. Munda and Morris. Did I have any more Futurama? Oh yeah. Well, I just wanted to. I only have plot holes this time. Because that's what Futurama is mainly plot holes and jokes, or talking about how it handles the themes, which we do at the end. But about that note, so she says she's an exolinguist, which they actually pick up that thread in future episodes. And I'm assuming from the word that means she knows alien languages. And my question is, if the orphanarium can't translate it, and that implies that and says no one on Earth can translate it. So it's an unknown alien language? Did she make up an alien language that doesn't actually exist? Does this mean she is the finest xenolinguist on Earth?
I think it's, you know what I mean? I think it's that because that's the neater message, right? Which is the idea that down in the sewer, there's some amazing minds that could benefit society, but they're sewer folks, so they don't even give them the time of day. They don't really lean into that idea. So I am just kind of creating that.
But it's a connection that feels good. Yeah. Let's let it be that. Yeah. And I also... Okay, I'll say that for joke roulette because it's inherently funny. Okay, Star Trek. What do you got?
I wanted to shout out to Data's, I guess, stepdad. What's his name? Pran. He's got a real Pran. Who, when Data is doing calculations, he goes to Riker and he's like, "Someone's going to double check the machine's calculations." What a weird version of machine racism. Like I've seen other, there's the one where the guy's like, "I don't like that Data's in command making these decisions about human lives."
Agree.
But the idea of I don't like that the computer named Data is doing our math for us. You need a human. But it's what the fuck are you talking about, man?
I've heard fuck this computer, it's breaking down, blah, blah, blah. The one thing I've never heard is, okay, the computer did a complicated math equation, but I'd rather do a pencil and paper to make sure that it's right. That's why you have a computer.
It's so weird.
And yet, at the same time, I've got to say, from his vantage, they're about to shoot a space laser at his planet. And as we show later, they don't know for sure what will happen. And they go, like this is the process for approving that plan in a conference room with just 2 people from that planet, Pran and Juliana. They go, here's what we're thinking. Maybe shoot a space laser at your planet. Could kill everyone. Could work though. And they go, yes, us 2 scientists. We are not government. We're just scientists. That sounds good. And then he goes, okay, then we're going to do it right now. We'll just do it now. And he goes, can we
take a moment?
Check the computers work? And they're like, no, I trust the computer. Fire space laser.
Can I call someone real quick? Can I tell the government?
Could I inform?
I feel like I'm going to go to jail.
Is there checks and balances and shit?
I feel like even if this works, I'm going to jail for this. Could you please? And then at the end, they're like, yeah, go back to your planet. They're going to show up and then it's just going to be all the world leaders like, what did you do? I mean, we're happy, but what did you do?
I guess it worked eventually, but Jesus.
You're right. It's the machine racism is weird, but he should at least be like, can we have at least like a few people going over this math, please? Like,
or one of the people there should have been the president of the planet or whatever.
For sure.
Something.
I do want to talk about the Enterprise, the ability to just like, I don't know if you know this, but we're struggling here on Earth with planetary things. Existential problems. It's just wild to me whenever in Star Trek they're like, we got this. And they just like press a few buttons, do a few things, and they just save a planet. And it's like, fuck you, Star Trek. Like that's what it is the Enterprise is like, it's just this roving god that's just like, oh yeah, your planet's dying. We can do it real quick. We can save it. All right, we're good.
Or they're like, but you haven't invented warp engine? Then we won't. We'll watch you die. I'm sorry.
Yeah. We'll be sad about it. Yeah.
This one really hammered home for me how deeply psychologically unsettling it is because there's a second person there now that we know Juliana was there for Sung to, as she says, insist that it look like him. That this first sentient android look like Dr. Sung. We know he's an egomaniac, but I just imagine that moment because she describes it and I'm like, that is
some
pretty
real boomer
insane.
shit.
That your husband would walk in with his own head and be like, look, I know you said you didn't want it to look like me, so it's up to you. I built the head. You could crush my head if you want, but otherwise it's going to look like me. And she's like,
fine, fucking fine. Yeah. No, I mean, without saying her name, my sister's full name is a combination of both my parents' names. And I only realized that like a year ago. Oh, and I was like, those egotistical sons of bitches. Like that is, like that, it's funny because when you think about it, you're like, yeah, that's very silly that he did that. But also like, yeah, if you're making a robot, I don't know, because it really, if I was making a robot, I wouldn't make it look like me because I don't think I look great. Yeah, it's just really, it is funny that
even if I thought I looked great, I would think history would think I was a fucking maniac.
But like, it does mean Soon looked at it and he was just like, no notes. This is what it should look like.
Right. Brent Spiner, the greatest man. I mean, I believe that, but I don't think other people do.
It's very weird.
Mainly for his work on 1776.
Even Data, when he made Lull, he was like, she should choose how she looks. She should choose if she wants to be a she. Like that was, Oh, yeah, the gender. Well, speaking of Data is progressive, and of course, we'll eventually cover the episode where Riker falls for an androgynous person, and they wanted to code it even more strongly as like an LGBTQ thing, but the studio dumbed it down a bit. But regardless, Star Trek is trying to do stuff like that, and this episode really made it occur to me for the first time that you could read, and it's a little early in pop culture history for this to be intentional, although certainly if there was a neurodivergent writer on staff, it could be intentional. But I do think it's rewarding to think all the way back to Spock, the idea of the emotionless character, which Spock, of course, inspired Data in some ways, all the way through to Data as a metaphor for the autism spectrum and having to be human through conscious practice and effort rather than instinct. And I just think if you watch this episode through that lens, it's really rewarding through that lens. I don't know if they meant for that to be true, but I think it is. And there's so much pathos. I think this is why Star Trek attracts so many different types of people and more, I would say, left-leaning thoughts as well, because that was on their mind. Sorry, I was just watching DS9 where I realized the Ferengi was just this whole analogy for what a person would be under a capitalist system like that. Like it's just about, Ferengis are just like here's how capitalism just fucking rots you.
Well, of course, people have asked in interviews, is it anti-Semitism? Are they supposed to be Jews? And of course, they're not going to say yes, because I fucking hope not. And I sincerely hope not. Like, I hope there wasn't even one person there who thought it was funny in the back of their mind or whatever. But what they say is, no, it was America. They're just supposed to be capitalist. It was American style capitalism. We want something to represent that. And I see that too. It stands up under that lens.
I get why people look at that and their eyes squint and they're like, what the fuck are you doing? And that's a lot of sci-fi.
Or how did it slip through?
It's a lot.
Because it looks like 40s and 50s propaganda cartoons. Like, you didn't notice that?
It's always, I think we've talked about this. If you're writing a sci-fi or fantasy and you find yourself creating a banker race, maybe go ahead and not do that.
Do your research,
Yeah,
bro.
maybe not.
Or like, really look into the history of all the ways that's been used before you. Yeah. Why didn't Data just jump down and then catch Juliana?
That moment is still like swimming in my head as one of the most unhinged things Data's ever done. He just goes,
it's like the moment Jordy bodies that guy. Yeah, it's just such a
here's my
thought
moment on that, and it's the most sense I can make it. Is Data is calculating a lot of stuff in that moment, and one of the things I think is he's calculating is we have to leave in 30 seconds. Or we will die.
It's got to be.
Yeah. And so when she says you'll never make it, and he says you'll make it, that's a lie that Data is telling her. So he knows that he probably did the math and said, like, there's like
she'll live but be horribly injured, but we'll
she'll
fix her.
live.
Yeah.
And in this Star Trek future, you can pretty much repair anybody. So I think that's what Data was thinking, is like, you will be made.
But he couldn't like scoop her up like fireman carry and jump himself.
It really seems like he could have done that.
All right. He is super speed also, by the way.
It really seems like he could have done that. But maybe Data was also like, I know you're a fucking robot, jump so you can be exposed.
Right. Yeah.
She's also, by the way, an incredible robot. It's the Enterprise, so I get
another
why.
technology where you're like, the Federation would never let that go, dude.
Picard,
after he told them all that she exists, they would have to pursue that.
So
science.
I assume Picard just didn't mention it, which is really he would get fired if they ever find that out. Because like if he told Starfleet, they'd be like, I'm sorry, and what's her full name? And where was she? Because we're gonna go swoop her up.
Just at least have
an aging robot that also the biggest thing is can mimic biological signals. They're like, well, that's huge.
Still has robot powers, has perfect memory, and can do perfect tasks.
Like, he created a Terminator, you say? But also the fact that he created aging technology, it's just like, that's nuts. That is an incredible.
And they're like, could we take out the aging chip and put a gun in its hand?
Exactly.
Like stuff.
So like many people for many reasons would be like, oh, if you can create aging, can you create de-aging? What is like, we need to open her up. It's wild. Even Data, because he's aspiring to be human. You can see Data just being like, I'm going to open you up and take you for parts.
Although it is funny imagining the older woman actress getting those chips applied to her forehead.
Yeah.
And being like, this is a fun show. This is fun to do. They're like plastering Radio Shack shit to her head. And about that meeting, the conference he does have, all I was thinking was like, a great way to keep a deathly secret that must be carried to your grave is to have a fucking conference with your coworkers
nerd Data thing
and go, look, this happened. What do you think I should do?
It's so Star Trek for him to be like, I need a conference. And it's like, no, you really don't.
Yeah.
Also telling the husband, that's interesting, because what if he's like, because he was robot racist earlier. And so, like,
right? Is it his right to know or no? They don't consider that,
and he knows, right? He does know. So he's gonna now be like, I'm fucking a robot. Do I really want this? Is she gonna kill me in my sleep? Is she gonna do math wrong? Which I guess is his big fear. It's like,
oh, do I have to check her math now?
That guy's whole life is different now. He has to just lie to her for the rest of her fucking life. I was going to ask if you agree with the decision. it really does seem like you kind of have to not tell her because the alternative would like set her off on a spiral, right?
I think it's the happier life for her if that's
Yeah.
your goal. And it's a perfectly laudable goal, but I would just say I think there's legitimate arguments about, well, in this situation, I think this goal would trump that goal. Or this goal would trump that goal.
Having agency, you know.
But if your goal is you want her to be okay, regardless of the consequences to the other factors, that's the best way to do that. Yeah.
So it's hard because it's like,
although I do love the idea because he says in order to transfer her whole lifetime of memories, right? To make that sci-fi piece work, he says Juliana fell into a coma, the real human one. I'm not going to say real because I just watched Blade Runner and I'm like, android rights, man. So the biological Juliana fell into a coma. This allowed him time to build the robotic Juliana and then transfer all of the brain patterns and memories from one to the other, and then she died. I think it would be so fucking funny if biological Juliana came out of the coma like people sometimes miraculously do and went, I'm sorry, what did you do?
You're describing I not quite. There is
another
the movie Replicas deals with this. I don't know if someone wakes up after that, but I know there's been a
And you're like, it's because I missed you. I don't care. You should not have done that.
In the process of fucking the robot. Just like, what the fuck is this?
Right, yeah. And then he walks in the room and he's like, that's not even me. That's a robot that looks like me fucking a robot that looks like you. So it's
fine.
okay.
Everything's fine. It's I guess it's that Futurama. That's what I might be thinking of. Sorry, I'm still stuck on the husband too, because since she doesn't know, the one big difference would be like, what if the husband wants to go like skydiving or like rock climbing and she's like, no, that's too risky. And he's just like, it's not, trust me, you'll be fine. You just got to trust me. Because that's the only difference is she has to go through life thinking she's breakable, more breakable than she is. Right.
Right.
Like if I knew as a robot, I would do a lot more risky shit. That's kind of it. That's the big difference. So like, what if she wants to do like skydiving or rob a bank or something? That gets stolen from her. The ability to realize that she, what if they're like, you're a robot and she's like, that is awesome. Like, what if she's just so into it? You don't know.
I'm a scientist. I'm going to study myself. I think it's interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever,
I don't know.
I also feel like Data would could he not use, he says he wants to have a child again in the future, but he can't perfect the positronic brain. Could he not use this time she was unconscious to study her brain and make himself a child? Didn't he want that?
Emotions, but not evil lore emotions. You know what I mean? Where it's he later gets his emotion chip, but it's like, you'd think he'd be way more interested in her brain. Data, it's like, you'd think he might just like steal her head for a month.
I do think if it wasn't, back in the past, TNG script writing where you're pretty polite and like 4-quadrant or like not as edgy as we get today, man, imagine like that is such an impactful concept. Imagine that if they showed the scene where Juliana dismantles Laura, like you dismantle your child, it's also your greatest achievement in your career and it looks like your husband. Or if like they upped the language and in the scene where she talks about it, she said like, I took you apart. You're my son and I took you apart. I couldn't do that again. Like that is such a cool sci-fi concept to me, to take your son apart and leave him on a dying planet.
Yeah. That's this whole movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
A couple little things. One, Picard is rock hard for that meeting, by the way. That's exactly the shit he loves.
Yeah, sure.
Two, Soon's holodeck response program. I'm just always curious about those. Is that like, is it a program that's like an AI where like it's trained to respond exactly to how Data speaks to it? Or is it like pre-recorded? Because he seems like to be emotional in the moment. And it's like, did he like, because he's just recording that shit for a camera, right?
I get the impression it's like an FAQ page, but a little fancier. Like AI stitches it together enough to feel like an affable interaction that makes organic sense, but there's only a limited bucket of information that he has that he can
I'm
provide.
happy with that.
Like he'd be like if you ask too much, he'd be like, I don't know anything.
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. You mentioned the line, but I really like it, so I'm going to read it. If she knew she were an android, I would no longer be alone in the universe. but at the same time, by telling her you'd rob her of the one thing you've wanted your whole life. That's classic TNG.
That's
where it's just like a conundrum you could read off a card and be like, that is a thinker.
And that's where Picard's balls tingled.
Just explode. Yeah.
He's like,
Pardon me.
yeah.
Clean the underside of this desk, number one. Okay. I think we're ready to do joke roulette, which is where we take all the profoundness of the Star Trek, set it up against a wall, and then fire the funniness of Futurama at it to see if what wins. I want to point out the very first thing is the Chiron joke, which I love this about Simpsons writers and Futurama writers. It's like hee-haw with lasers. Dude, people have not known what hee-haw is for 30 years already at the time of when this was even dropped.
These old
but anyway,
fucks.
yeah. It's not a great joke, but a notable joke.
First line, good news, everyone. You all know the orphanarium where Leela grew up. Fry, sure, we talk about it all the time. Leela, really? Fry, no. Burn. And then Professor,
Burn.
well done, fellows.
Well done, fellows. Amy, orphan of the year. Your parents must be so proud. Oops,
Yep.
sorry.
Amy's only line. I don't know if it's the only one, but
It's her only
you
line.
mentioned
of the,
the
episode,
nose. This exchange, Hermes, it looks like toxic waste, and it smells like toxic waste. Fry, what does it taste like? Hermes, delicious fig pudding. Oh, that's good. But a distinct aftertaste of toxic waste. And then it keeps going. Hermes, I'm afraid or you don't have to make a federal case out of it. I'm afraid I do. I order you to dispose of that toxic waste properly or bribe me. Either way, it'll cost you $500.
Bender saying he'll deal with the toxic waste and then dumping it in the sewer. All right, environment. You've met your match.
We mentioned the orphanarium has the baskets by the door, which is just a fun visual gag, like a supermarket.
Yeah, big pile of baskets. Yeah. And at the orphanarium when she's giving her thank you speech, sorry, no, it's the head of the orphanarium giving his congratulations speech. It's not easy being an orphan. Not if I have anything to do with it. Ha ha ha. Anyway, I still remember the night that baby was left on our doorstep because I have a photographic memory and I remember every night.
Leela's speech, like many of you, I never knew my parents. I don't know if they were mighty alien overlords or simply underpaid alien janitors who fought crime on the side.
All the pictures of the various orphans of the year and their distinction. Leela, ship captain, and then the next ones often seen in the background of news spots, and background is spelled wrong, which I also like. Diligent flosser has tasted every McDonald's sandwich, successfully switched from heroin to methadone.
And of course the payoff where he jumps in the background when they take her picture. Goes, woo!
Yeah, the news dude gets in her news segment, which causes her photo to fall off the wall too, which is a funny bit that's hard to describe in joke roulette. But the whole time of her speech in the background, her speech is interrupted by him trying to nail it. And he's like, I think I'm hitting a stud. Yeah. Why won't it?
Just Fry. Is it the room that's making you sad? It's probably the room.
Yeah. Sorry, usually I try to keep my sadness all pent up inside. Yeah, that's what I do with my stupidness.
Oh, you missed part of it. Where it can fester quietly as a mental illness is the continuation.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Shout out to a couple visual gags. All of the stores are mutant themed except for Starbucks. Bender using Fry as a baseball bat.
Right. By the way, they are head reduction surgery, Bed Bath and Beneath, Big and Strange Men's Fashion Warehouse, and Starbucks. I also like... It's everything I've ever flushed. Look, my diary pages and my half-finished screenplay, Fry. And for some reason, that long letter I wrote you about all my personal feelings.
Yeah. Stop right there. I don't want to hurt you. She kicks him. I didn't want you to hurt me either. Delivered.
Hey, what? Why aren't you going to kill us anymore? Yeah, what are you, chicken? Guys, shut up. We can kill ourselves when we get home.
And I got a long one, Fry's entire scene with the orphanarium guy.
Okay.
Is there anything else you can tell me? Nah, nothing that wouldn't be a waste of your time, Fry. That's impossible because my time is worthless. Well, there is one thing. It's a note I found with Leela the day she was abandoned. It's written in alienese, so no one on Earth can translate it. Not even Brainzilla.
Brainzilla,
which I really
great.
like.
Yeah.
Fry, hand it over. Sure, I just wish I could be more helpful. Would you like some dirt on some of the
Other
any of
orphans?
the other orphans? Look, I'm trying to save someone here. I'll have to come back for those later.
Wow. I know, just
Great.
because my brain connects things. Blade Runner 2049, he also goes to an orphanage to track someone down.
Ah.
Professor, I can only translate the note into Beta Crypt 3, a language so complex there's even less chance of translating it. Hey, I didn't ask you for a perfectly reasonable explanation.
My last
Excuse.
one
I didn't ask you
listened.
for a perfectly reasonable excuse. Sorry.
Great parent exchange. The mom, keep quiet so she doesn't hear us, the dad. What's there to talk about?
And now,
Which I just-
yeah. What's there to talk about? Shh. And now my long exchange that I cannot get over. Such a good run. Wait, isn't that the machine that makes noses? It can do other things. Who says it shouldn't? All right, well, how long will it take? Who can say? It could take an hour, a day, or 1,000,000 years. Ding, ding. Does that mean it's... Oh, sorry, just one ding. Ding. Does that mean it's done? Certainly not. 2 dings means it's done. Ding, ding. Not like that, though. Slightly more rapid. Ding, ding. Fry gasps with anticipation. Professor just like shakes his head sadly.
Shakes his head.
No.
Ah, beautiful.
Then when it works, I can't believe it. My mind is boggling. Let's see. Are you out?
About.
Okay. I'm going to raise my quality bar then and see if there's any final ones that make the cut.
I've been trying to do the same.
What's there to talk about? Am I a game to you or some kind of even more boring Truman Show? I like that because I feel like no one has the balls to admit that Truman Show is pretty boring outside of Jim Carrey being a skilled performer.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't say enough about the theme to me.
Right.
Let's see. What did the note say? I don't know, but it was printed on squeezably soft toilet paper, mainly used in the sewers. I like that. No, that didn't deserve it. That didn't pass the quality bar, so I am done. Okay, yep. Also,
Nice.
Also weird that she found a birthday present in the street and strange cookies just appeared on plates and a note that said, "We love you, Leela," when she was like 17 and she never questioned or looked into it before.
Yeah. They always Futurama really wants us to have that emotional fucking release in their episodes. They do it a lot, right?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes they nail it, sometimes they don't. This one personally didn't. Like the arc of the parents is emotional, but that montage didn't really do it for me.
Sure. All right, then.
But it varies.
Let's move on into our penultimate segment where we warp fastly to judgment of quality.
Warp 9.
Knock it up a notch.
Maximum warp.
Make it so.
Engage. No, don't engage. Energize.
Nice.
Not nice. One of my weakest bump bits, but let's do it. This is simply where we say like, I like this one better. And I would say it's mainly comparing like, did you think the Futurama, which is this one is trying to be poignant, was as funny, poignant, impactful on the theme of you discover your lineage and it's not what you thought it was, or was the Star Trek not necessarily funnier, but impactful?
Well, all right.
Yeah.
Here's my thoughts on it.
Mhm.
While this didn't work on me, I think I have to give it to Futurama because we never see Data's mom again. It clearly didn't have that much of an impact on Data. It felt like they were trying to have their cake and eat it too here, whereas Futurama was like, no, these are characters now. And we will continue this emotional journey with Leela and her parents, whereas they just didn't do that with Data.
Yeah.
And so I think I have to give it to Futurama based on that.
Cool. Well, we have a split decision this time. That doesn't it happens less often than the other, but I'm going to give it to the Star Trek, mainly because I am viewing it as a standalone because the serialized nature is part of what I like about it. So I'm discounting the thing you just said, even though I also get your logic.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say, just as a standalone thing, I remember the Leela's Homeworld episode initially coming out, and I feel like the reveal was interesting to me at the time, and I was super pleased that they stretched it for so long, kind of like Buster losing his hand in Arrested Development. I was like, that's cool that you had that in your pocket from the start, but of course that will get trumped many times over by how many times it turns out they had all the Nibbler lore figured out from the start. Like that shit's so impressive to me. But I guess I'm having my cake and eating it too, because now I am comparing things from outside the episode. My point just being, I think the TNG is a peak TNG because of that little dual pair of lines I said. I'm like, any TNG that gets to that point where they're saying the interesting conundrum, I'm like, you did it. You did what you're supposed to do as a thing. And
Absolutely.
And the Futurama was like, it was pretty funny, but it's not one of the ones where I go, I only have time to watch 3 Futuramas right now. You know what I want to watch? Blah, blah, blah. It's never Leela's Homeworld.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'll still stick with Futurama, but I also see where you're coming from completely, because I do think the Star Trek deals with a more fun mental exercise. You know.
Yeah, I wish they did take it further. Like, I wish Masks, a famously divisive episode, I wish instead of becoming an entire alien culture that we've never met before, he started exhibiting and being all the various colonists whose memories he has.
That's such a better idea.
Way cooler, but they never follow up on that either. Sad.
No, they don't.
Alrighty. Well, we are in a hurry because Dave had to buy his car, which compacted our schedule just a little bit. So sorry if we shortchanged this segment, but let's do our final segment, the sounds of which should come in now.
Open hailing frequencies.
Frequencies open, sir.
I don't want to live on this planet anymore.
That's the name of it.
Good.
That's right. Thank you, editor. And this is just where we close out with some fan questions. I'm only going to do 2 quickies, but if you responded to my Twitter thread about this, I will definitely save some of these for 2 times from
As
now
will
when I
I.
host again. Yeah, so
Yeah, I might mine your thread.
if you do that, I will delete the ones you know, we'll do what makes sense.
Yeah.
So let's just go for the top 2 that came in. Andre Alvarez at Nerd Numbers asks, based on the wedding sketch I just released, because as we talked about, I got married. I released a sketch. You can check it out. Just search for Swaim and Jen's wedding sketch, EEAAO parody, if you want to see it on YouTube. For both Futurama and Star Trek, what's a skill you'd love a main character to get from an adjacent dimension? What random act would they need to do to get it? And what scenario would you like it to happen in? I'm going to say Futurama or Star Trek. Whichever one you take, I'll take the other, just for expediency's sake.
This jumped right into my mind, so I'll just go with
Do
it. Picard and expert karate, which is from Everything Everywhere All at Once. It's just like, I just really want that now. I want Picard to be a fucking martial arts expert.
That's great. I was gonna. Oh yeah. Sorry, there's more. What does he have to do?
I want him to lick the entire side of one of the corridors, like the length. Not. Yeah.
Sure. And what scenario? Like, why does he need the karate?
To fight Borg. Because there's so many times where he's like, man, I should be able to do more karate.
It doesn't fit the show at all, but the Stan in me is like, oh man, Picard hand to hand just beating the shit out of Borg.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah, dude, that would be righteous, bro. But it makes no sense for the show.
Yeah, I feel like I grabbed some low hanging fruit, but that is just what immediately came.
Because I was gonna say give Data what he wants and make him like a really moody bitch. Like, that would be funny to me. But for the sake of doing a Futurama one, I will just improv style pull one completely out of my ass because I have nothing off the top of my head. Who's a character I always like fucking with more? Hermes, especially because he has such a narrow lane of joke buckets. I would like to see, let's see, Mad Libs, the shit Swaim. I like to see Hermes suddenly get the ability to pole vault, because that's humorously banal and similar to limboing. It's the opposite.
It's the other side.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would like it to happen at Barbados Slim's funeral, and he pole vaults over the casket and shits in the open casket as he does. And when he lands, he is making love to La Barbara, like just right.
Okay.
And that's the scenario. Yeah, the funeral. So great. We're done. Last question. LS Gregor at Greg L 58443 stardate 9.984. When I am bored, I make my cats. This is for Dave. I make my cats skank to ska music. Am I okay?
Did you teach him to skank?
Or should I get professional help? The cats seem indifferent when I force them to participate.
Yeah,
I
I mean, I don't know
paraphrased.
what the nature, if you're tying rope to the cats to like puppet
Is a
them, or
marionette?
if you're just or if you're just grabbing their little paws.
Or are you
and
playing
making them
skank that's so infectious that against their will
Yeah.
they have to?
It honestly depends on the cat. I know everything from the cat that's just like a fucking rag doll who doesn't give a rat's ass.
Yeah.
To like, I have both sides of the spectrum. I have like a crabby alley cat, which is Kitten, and now I have Rue, which is like the big chonky Garfield who doesn't give a shit.
Beautiful.
So it depends, you know. I hold Kitten like a baby, and she doesn't always appreciate that, but she tolerates it, you know.
Yeah.
So it's free rent.
Great. And I think there was one more thing I wanted to say, but it's probably goodbye because it has to be based on the
I
timing.
have to plug.
Yeah.
Gamefully Unemployed, patreon.com/gamefully unemployed.
Please. No,
That's
you
all.
could stretch that out. Our goodbye involves several steps. I know that.
Yeah. No, I was just, if you want more of these podcasts, the other half, patreon.com/gamefully unemployed. That's it.
Yeah. That's what I wanted to ask. Do you like the RX Bandits?
What is that?
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.